Dennis and Amanda Holden decided to call it a day, one of the easier decisions was who got the dog. They'd got one each, actually. They kept one each because they'd got two. Amanda got Nobby and Fudge went to Les. And when Will and Julia Carling separated, Will conceded, and it's Julia who now takes Biff, these walkies. But Rudy Lenska and Dennis Waterman couldn't agree over their dogs, Silky and Lacey. And in a second, we'll reveal the ingenious way the argument was resolved. Because argument there was. The disagreements about who keeps the dog go deep when both partners have a huge emotional attachment to their pet. Take the case of married TV vets in practice, Emma Mill and Joe Ingalls. Now, when they divorced, the question of who kept Pan and Badget caused them incredible pain.
Emma and I got our two dogs when we first qualified from college in 1996. And then we split up, and we had the real dilemma of what to do with the dogs, because in many ways it was a bit like having children. They were our responsibility, so we thought it'd be fairer if they stayed with one or other of us. Initially, that was me, and Emma arranged to come and see them whenever it was convenient and take them for a walk. As the months went past, I started doing lots of travelling, and it became more practical for Emma to look after the dogs, so she took over the main role. Gradually, over the years, I've seen less and less of them, and now I really see very little of them, which is sad because, you know, they were a big part of my life. I think they're happy now, and that's the most important thing.
Nice man. Now, here we are with divorce lawyer Vanessa Lloyd-Platt, animal psychologist Roger Mugford, who tends to be used as a sort of expert witness in these custody cases, and Chris Dyson and Bev O'Connell, who both battled their exes for their dogs when they broke up. Bev was successful, Chris wasn't, and he's still bitter about it. But before I come to you two and your stories, I just talked to you, Vanessa, I mean, have you ever handled a divorce case where pets was an issue?
We have. We've dealt with very few where pets are actually an issue, because most people are very sensible, particularly in Britain. They do work that issue out. But we have had a couple where they couldn't work it out.
It was very complicated, wasn't it? With lots and lots of pets.
Well, we did. We had one where there were many, many, many animals, and the issue was how we were going to divide them up, who was going to get who, and we had to make an order where we had to list them all out and contact rights to the dogs. And it sounds bizarre. It was even more bizarre standing in court doing it, but we did work it out eventually. Yeah. But we are concerned that there might be growing numbers of this happening because so many people are getting divorced and so many people have pets and are becoming very attached.
And so many people are delaying having children as well. So more and more people who are divorcing don't have kids, but they have pets instead.
Apparently it's increasingly happening in the States, and everything that happens in the States...
They're mad in the States, let's face it. They've got a judge who's got a court in America where he calls the dogs over and he tells the people to go from one end of the court to the other, mum and dad one end, and whoever the dog goes to, he says the dog should be kept by. But the problem was, in the last case that he had, the dog went to the judge. He would not budge from the judge. So there was a real problem on this. He just wouldn't move.
These are apparently now known in America as custody cases. I have to get that in.
You do.
Roger, we're going to talk to you in a minute about how you do a much more subtle job than that. And you are basically Solomon. I mean, it's rather like Solomon. You know, to decide which mother the baby went to, which woman the baby went to. You decide who the dog goes to, and it's a fascinating process. Come back to that in a second. Let's talk to you two. Beverly, I mean, you've got your dog, although I have to say Tia, well, I think she's anybody's if you pat her on the head. Tia, come on, Tia. Come on. See, you know? Come on, come on. Ah. Now, what happened?
Just a lovely
She's a lovely dog. Okay, you split up, and how did... at first, you thought everything was fine, didn't you? With your ex?
Yes.
And you went on holiday, and the logical thing to do, it seemed, was to take Tia to your ex, and he looked after him.
Yeah.
Robert. And then when you came back, you didn't want to give the dog back?
No, he wouldn't give her back. He had agreed that I could keep her initially, and he wanted to look after her while I went on holiday.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, when I came back, he wouldn't bring her back to me.
I mean, we can't speculate why, but I'm not surprised. She's absolutely gorgeous. So affectionate.
She is.
So you got her back in a complicated way, which involved solicitors and all sorts of stuff. It wasn't easy for you.
All right, Richard, you beat my dog up, don't worry.
So the emotions that go when a couple's splitting up, we all know that emotions are kind of like that anyway.
Yeah.
I know what it's like when a couple split up who've got children, but a pet, I can't. Why did you get so involved? Why did you get so upset?
Well, I love her very much.
Yeah.
As do most people with their animals. I know people with children who adore the dogs equally as much as I adore my dogs, so they're not necessarily child substitutes. I mean, Clear is my dog, she's not my child substitute.
So even though you wanted, you could kind of understand why your ex just couldn't let her go. Tia?
I've gone walkabout.
She fancies everybody, that does. Okay, all right. So you went through a 2-week legal process, which ended up in kind of informal hearings outside the judge's rooms, and it was agreed that you should have the dog.
Yeah.
Okay. Has that left him devastated?
I don't think so, no.
No, he's got over it.
Yes.
Okay, but the moment you were told that you could keep the dog, the sun came up, everything was great.
Yeah, well, it was a stipulation of the divorce settlement that I have her and he can have whatever he wants, basically, and that's the route we went.
Okay.
So I got what I wanted.
So basically, the dog in exchange for anything else.
Yes.
Is that important to you?
Yes.
Jeez.
Chris, now, this shouldn't have been much of an issue between you and your ex-wife because you had two. You had two dogs.
We did, yes, we did.
One of them was a dog, and that was Billy.
Yes.
And one of them was a bitch,
Yes.
Shona.
That's correct, yes.
And they actually, when you decided to split up, you were both agreed that you should have one each.
Absolutely, yeah.
How did you decide which one?
Well, the Shona the bitch came on the scene, was the first one on the scene, and my wife actually bought her. She wanted her for her and the children, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
Billy, who was a bit of a rebel, he was the one who...
What a dog. That's a great dog, yeah?
Springer Spaniel.
Springer Spaniel, lovely doggy.
Yeah.
Absolute super dog. He was the one who was a bit of a stray, really. He was picked up by one of our neighbours, thinking that it was Shona. And this neighbour of ours brought him over to the pub and said, we'd like to look at, can you look after him? Because I've got 2 or 3 dogs of my own, you see.
Yeah, just to cut a long story short, basically, you felt that the real bond was between you and Billy. You just,
absolutely.
You really
yeah,
were
absolutely.
friends, you know.
It was
nice best friend and all
a
that.
superb dog. He was brilliant.
Well, anyway, your partner took him back.
Yeah.
Big problems.
Regrettably, yeah.
Yeah, went to court. You represented yourself.
I
in front
did
of the
indeed,
judge,
yes.
And sadly for you, the judge ruled against you.
Unfortunately, yes.
Why did the judge think the dog should go to your ex? In a sentence, what was the bottom line?
Well, judges make decisions, and you have to abide by the judge's
Of course you do.
decisions.
But what was his rationale?
I'm not sure really what the rationale was with the judge, but the judge made a decision, and regrettably, once the judge makes a decision,
And
that's it. Which is a terrible shame, really.
And you're still unhappy about it. But why don't you get another dog then? If that's, 3 years ago?
Well, I miss Billy. It was a lovely dog. It was really intelligent. It was alert. It was sensitive. It was superb.
I can tell you're very upset just talking about it. It's only it's good 3
about
years ago.
4 years ago now. Fortunately, though, on the positive side, I'm in contact with my daughters, and my daughter does bring Billy down occasionally.
Oh, so you still see him?
Yeah. So it's not too bad.
You would
really.
say they should have come to you.
Well, yeah, that's right. I mean, the sense usually goes when you get to court, and all sort of blistering aggression that goes on in courtroom hearings with, good legal representation as well to help things along. But
Tell us what you do.
well, what we do is we ideally would see both parties and sit down and say, well, look, when you separate, who's going to have the most appropriate lifestyle? Who's going to be doing the best for, in this case, Billy? For instance, if one of you working, 12, 15 hours out of the house, will the dog be left alone? What facilities for exercise? Who pays the vet bills? Who indeed began the process of acquiring this dog in the first
And
place?
what if they both say this? What if they both tick all those boxes and say, "I'll do that, I'll do that, I'll do that"? How? I mean, you obviously, as a psychologist, you observe them with the animal, don't you?
Where there is a deep love by both parties, then you try and find some compromise. And the compromise of a weekend or a split relationship is very good for dogs. It's a disaster for cats and probably for most other species, but dogs are incredibly adaptable at going with one or
So you
other
can have
parties.
shared
So you can have
custody.
shared custody.
But what about if there are 2 dogs, like in the case of Chris over there? There are 2 dogs. And in fact, I think you advised in this case, in the case of Rula Lenska, when she and Dennis Waterman split up, they had 2 dogs. And the obvious assumption would be, wouldn't it, that
One
one
to
should
each.
have one, but in fact, you advised them to keep the dogs together.
And we normally would, because where there's a close bond between the dogs, they have rights. And really, I would always put the interests of the animals first.
'Cause you
And
think-
they have a friendly relationship, a sense of attachment, so let them stay together.
So who got them?
Well, go on. Sorry.
Who got them in the end?
Oh, Rula, of course,
Rula.
kept the dogs, and she's a very doggy person and a very animal-friendly person.
And you think it's a shame, don't you, that Amanda and Les didn't agree to keep both dogs together and share them?
Well, of course, it depends on the individual dogs, and some dogs may be living in totally different worlds and be suitable for separation, and others are better, so one can't comment on the individual case. That's the important thing, is there are no general rules. There is only, a sensitive assessment of what's in the interest of that particular couple, family, with their dogs.
But the courts tend to say, well, let's split them up.
Yes.
When the courts make the decisions, they do tend, where there are two dogs,
Right.
to try and be fair and reasonable.
All right, thank you all very much indeed. It's a modern phenomenon. Never thought about it before. Okay, thank you. Now, as we've been saying, George Michael is joining us live tomorrow to talk, amongst other things, about his ferocious opposition to war with Iraq. He'll be